Shin here, welcome back to my channel. With the release of Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition only 18 days away, we've been getting more and more information on the game, and with each new tidbit of info, it's been fanning the flames of our anticipation and excitement. With the new information we just received only days ago, I believe now is a good time to compile and talk about what we know so far. If you've eagerly been awaiting the game's release, I'd suggest you to join the fam by hitting the subscribe button. And with that said, let's begin. Can I just start by saying how bloody gorgeous the game looks? Like, oh my god, look at all this, man. Secondly, it's so weird seeing urban areas in a Xeno game. Usually it's the complete opposite in a JRPG, but I don't know what it is about Xeno games that makes something as simple as seeing an urban area feel so mind-blowing. Thirdly, the textures and the character models look so good. I know it took some time for some people to get on board with Elma's new design, but I for one instantly loved it. Right, so now that I got that on my system, let's actually talk about the important stuff. With the initial reveal trailer, we found out that we're getting additional content, but not what it was exactly. Thanks to the latest trailers though, we now have a good grasp on what the additional content will entail. I was slightly hoping that they'd pad out the base story with the infamous cut content that we heard was axed mid-production, but unfortunately that doesn't seem to be the case. On the bright side, however, it seems we're getting post-game content. This content seems to revolve around three things: the lone hero Elma was acquainted with, who seems to have had redesign that, to be honest, I'm low-key kind of bummed about. Like, have you seen this? Like, I mean, the Black Knight's armor looks so cool, and the name Black Knight goes so freaking hard. People also seem to be confused about what the lone hero's new personality is. The second I saw him, personally, I was reminded of Lance from Xeno 3. I don't know, I thought I'd throw that out there. Carrying on, Secrets of Mira and the Gnosis. I'm sorry, I meant ghosts. Jokes aside, it seems the ghosts seem to function how the Gnosis did in Xenosaga, whereby they have the power to turn people into salt or dust. The ghosts do the same thing, except they don't have to come into physical contact with humans to use their powers, whereas in Xenosaga, that was the case. We also heard in a rumor that Takahashi was trying to wrap up the story of Xenoblade X and introduce more questions for a sequel, which now looking at the ghosts, I think we can all agree is definitely the case, and I do have a good understanding of where the story will go, but I will refrain from going into it as I don't want to spoil it for people that would like to experience it blindly. Of course, there's a chance that Takahashi might end up changing the story into a completely new direction. But based off of previous works, I think it's safe to say that I know where the story might be going, and what Takahashi meant in his recent interview when he said that fans would understand where the series is headed soon. I'm not Luxon, so I won't dissect the story for like 10 hours, so instead let's move on to the thing that's seen the most changes: gameplay. So I haven't played the Wii U game, but I do have the limited edition for it. I told myself that if the game didn't come out in 5 years, that I'd dust off my Wii U and play the game. But here we are. The year I was meant to play the Wii U version, I was instead blasted by Takahashi with a definitive Switch version. As a result, however, I don't know about the old game, but I do have a decent understanding, mainly that the combat was closest to Xenoblade 1 and that it didn't do a good job at explaining important combat information like Xeno 2. I'm going to try my best to pick out relevant information, but if I miss anything, please let me know in the comments on anything that you might have picked up and I'll pin it. For starters, text. From what I've heard, the text for the older X game was supposedly small and many complained about it. Personally, I liked the old font, but I did think it needed some adjustments, like, you know, in terms of making it bigger and bolder. Then we have a navigation, or follow ball as they call it in this game, and this definitely seems to be a huge upgrade. I love how they've made navigation quest logs so easy, just like Xenoblade DE. That's bound to shave off many hours off of my playthrough, and as someone who is incredibly busy nowadays, I can truly appreciate that. Next up is UI. The UI looks so sleek, it's insane. From the combat UI to the menus and even a table of contents as we saw in one of the leaks. I do have a gripe with the game, however. I was hoping that they'd add a movie scenario in the main menu, like they have done with all the other Xeno games, but so far I don't see it anywhere. Then we have combat, which one could argue is the most important upgrade. So I don't know if this was in the old game, but since they put emphasis on it in the trailers, I'm assuming it's new. I don't know what you call it, but in combat we have it now where allies will call out to the player to make a certain move, and in doing so on time will grant you some sort of benefit or damage boost from my understanding. Furthermore, we now have a new bar on the bottom right of the arts palette that will have a rechargeable gauge that lets players execute moves quicker when they press Y. I believe they added this in to fasten combat and not have players waiting or cooldown recharge times. And lastly, they've added notifications for certain arts when you're in a good position to execute them. So for example, in Xeno 1 DE, when Shulk would be behind an enemy, the / arts would have an exclamation mark on top of it. It's the same thing here. We also have overdrive counter guidance to better help players with overdrive mechanics, and I believe that's it, or at least that's what we know so far in terms of combat. In terms of combat upgrades. In terms of overworld traversing mechanics, we now have a jump mechanic in skills. Previously, we'd have to initiate a flight every time, which doesn't sound too bad. that people hated how every time the flight soundtrack would kick off and then reset the traversing theme. Doesn't matter if it was for 2 seconds, it was still reset. They've also made changes to the flight theme, though we don't know what it is, but you can see in the settings menu there seems to be an option for it. The lone hero skill in the concept art now seems to belong to a new unit, and it's called the Freshberg, which I should mention is now playable, but unlike the other skills isn't upgradable. But as a result, it seemingly has the fastest travel speed, so you can fly around Mira much quicker. Previously, all that we knew was that it was owned by a person with an Emir looking mask that worked for the Blade Corporation, but now we know the person. A woman that goes by the name of Liesel or Liesel, who seems to be a completely new character. We also got the concept art character Neil Nail in this version that seems to play a bigger role this time around, and she is looking like my type for real. He also seems to be acquainted with the 2 skills that I heard were meant to have a bigger role, but were repurposed to be some sort of tutorial only skills or something along the lines in the base game, but now play a more important role. Next, we also have it where instead of traversing each time to change your party members, you can simply swap out party members from your menu. In addition, it seems we'll be getting newer playable party members. The next big thing I'm completely over the moon about is the online multiplayer aspect. I know it was in the older game as well, but it looks so much more refined and better looking now. Plus, we get to play with friends more easier, which I'm definitely excited for, as I'll be dragging my homies to play this one with me. You bet. Another big thing that seems to be returning with upgrades functionality seems to be the leaderboards. Lastly, skill rank seems to have been completely stripped apart. Now, I'm that person who, when grinding for such stuff, hates it. I complain, but I do it anyway. So I'm kind of conflicted about it. A part of me is grateful that it's gone because now I don't have to sink in thousands of hours. Another part of me is not happy because I wanted to experience that part of the gameplay also. I get that this was done to make things more fast-paced, but still. And with that, we've covered all the new upgrades, we're up to date, and all the changes in the definitive edition of Xenoblade Chronicles X is what I would have said, but Monolith has just been spam posting as of recent on their Twitter, and I'll spare you guys all the minuscule details, but the most noteworthy thing that we got was the fact that we can change time. This is something that we could also do in the old version, but you had to go back to the main base to do it, but now you can do it from the menu, so that is also a good thing. Back to the main video. This might be my last video in terms of covering trailers for the game, unless we get a more substantial info dump on the game, but because we're so close to the release date, I think it's better to wait and cover the game when it drops. That said, I hope you're ready for the game as much as I am. Stick around for more Xeno content. Yanni.
星のように